On today's show, we talk with Kim Hassian. She's the founder and homesteader of Alpine View Farms in Northern California. She's got some great tips for us as a health teacher and a person who has slowly built her homestead to include chickens, gardens, and other ways of bringing farm to table in her own life. Thank you for being here, Kim. I am excited to talk with you, and I've been following you for a long time about your homesteading, so I'm hoping to get some good tips for myself and the audience today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
So let's talk about your beginning toward your health journey and what really started to inspire you. It's many years ago. You started teaching a health class that you've taught for many years and just trying to be an example to your students. But it must have started even before that, before you had students to teach, you're trying to teach yourself.
I think the first step of this journey probably happened after I had my son. Being a new mom, and here you have this new creature and you just want the best for them. And so I started with that. I made all of his baby food and I breastfed him. So, he didn't have any of that processed food. And I think that was probably the first step in that journey.
I think it often is because I know for me, if I just took care of myself as well as I took care of my kids sometimes, when he was growing up and when I was pregnant and things. So I know that that's often a motivation for moms, and to just try and give them as many months as you can of just pure food. And, in time, those other treats and things will show up especially once they start going to school. My son always got upset with me because he said nothing in his lunch had a wrapper. And he liked not having something in a wrapper. I'm like, well, that's just because it's real food. But yeah, so let's talk about that. Then your education, you have an education in French and also health. And so how long have you been teaching health to your students?
So I've been teaching health for 34 years at school. Yes. And I used to teach French as well. But as the school grew, the principal at the time asked me to choose one or the other path, and health had really become my passion.
And then how long ago was that? That was the 34 years ago? You've been doing it all this time?
Yeah, about 34 years ago. Yes.
How has it changed what you're teaching from then to now? Obviously, we have more resources. We have more information, actually probably information overload. People don't know what the right information is. So you have to disseminate that. How has it changed for you over the years?
Well, one of the really neat things about teaching health is that we're constantly learning. And so my teaching evolves with the times as we learn more. And so, for example, one of my I'm most passionate about my nutrition unit, one of them. And I think because if I can really impart in kids how to eat truly healthy and they care about that, they're going to care about so much more for themselves and for their health. And so that has definitely changed because, we grew up in the dieting mindset, right? The low fat and all of this. And we know now that that's not the case. Butter is best. Moderation, of course, the natural. So my teaching has definitely evolved with the knowledge that we've gained.
I think that that's true. When I look back to, I think the first diet I went on was in college. When I first started college, I really didn't need to go on a diet at all. And but it was that mentality of, all or nothing, no 80-20 rule, no grace, none of that, just very restricted. The cabbage diet, I can remember so many of them, just even my mom doing that with our neighborhood friends. And so it's introduced at a young age, and even more so now with social media and the pressure and the pictures and all the things. What do you tell your students about that? What about your self-image and what you've learned about that have you been able to impart to them? And have you seen that increase, particularly for young women over the years, having those self-esteem issues because of social media and the pressure that with all the information and all the ways that people are seeing these days?
Yeah, it's a really big problem still among girls mainly. And they just feel like they can't be eating. They don't eat enough. They deprive themselves so much. So in that nutrition unit, I'm really trying to impart it upon them that, eating truly clean, healthy food and exercising regularly, you're never going to need to go on a diet, really, and nor should you in any case. But everybody should be eating healthy and exercising regularly. And if indeed a person needed to lose a little bit of weight, it would just come off naturally.
And it's a hard thing too. I think about, well, we think about packaged foods that we have now, and we had them back then too. But really now, I mean, really the convenience of things has increased over the 3 decades that you've been teaching this. So do do some of your students, do you find that they pay more attention to what they bring for lunch? I mean, do you have it's kind of like looking in their grocery cart to see what they're buying. Do you pay attention to that? Do you have an accountability for them, or you're just hoping that they learn it along the way?
Yes, definitely. If people truly understood how toxic our industrialized food system is, they would make some changes. And so we definitely go through all of that in my health class. And then we make a full circle to learn how to access that truly healthy food, clean, organic, seasonal, all of these different things that just transform not only a person's physical health, but also their mental health. Because so much of our hormones, our feel good hormones, are produced in our gut. And so much of our immune system is produced in our gut. So the beautiful thing of this healthy living lifestyle is that if somebody starts to eat healthier, not only are they going to transform their physical health, but their mental health as well.
Let's take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about what you've done in your own home where you live to bring some of these practices into your everyday life. We're talking with Kim Hassian. We'll be back in just a moment. We're back with you, Kim Hassian. And one of the things that we haven't mentioned yet is that you are a homesteader and you have Alpine View Farms in Northern California. I see your posts. I wish I lived close enough to get your fresh eggs, but I don't get them here, though, from other people. Let's talk about that and how the importance of having whole foods, clean foods, knowing where they're coming from, fresh out of your garden, fresh from your chicken coops. How has that played a role? And obviously, you made a move. Well, people can do it in the city too, but you've made a move where you had more land and you could expand on some of those ideas and desires you had.
Yes, you made such a great point that anybody can homestead, even in a tiny apartment in New York City. There's something that everybody can do. We moved to the country about 6 years ago, and that's where I really fell in love with this lifestyle and homesteading. And I even though I was a very healthy eater before we moved here, there were still certain things that I would never consider doing, like making homemade bread. I thought, why do I need to make homemade bread? I can just buy it at the store. It's a common
Yeah.
kind of protein.
Yeah.
Why do I need to have chickens? But I've always wanted chickens. But a lot of people think, why do I need to buy chickens? I can just buy eggs at the store. But the quality is unbelievably better. And surprisingly, you save money when you make your own food. For example, I make organic sourdough bread. We figured out that cost us $1.40 per loaf. You cannot beat that at the grocery store, but beyond that is the taste. Same thing with our eggs. Eggs in the grocery store are usually already 4 to 6 weeks old. So fresh eggs from either your local farmer or from your own backyard, the taste is I've never tasted eggs like that before. And again, eventually do save some money there, although chickens is a little bit expensive to get started and do it right. But anyway, I just started with the big garden, and we expanded that every year. Growing your own food, again, the taste is unbelievable. And there's such a satisfaction from growing and producing your own food. I really feel like we as humans were meant to create and produce instead of just consume. And our society is about consumption right now. And I really think that there's a tie-in to mental health with that, right? That you're not getting that satisfaction. And then with our Alpine View Farm, to have somebody else who also sees the value in what we're doing and wants to buy our products, just an extra special part of that is so satisfying. And then beyond,
Sorry, go ahead.
go ahead.
Oh, I went to Italy a few years ago, and one of our excursions was to go to this castle, and we made our own food from scratch. And then we had a wine tasting where they paired a wine with each course of the meal that we made. And when they brought the chicken for us to cook and the eggs for us to put into the 5-ingredient cake we were making, all from there at the homestead there, that I'd never seen chicken that color, and I'd never seen eggs that color. Probably when I was a kid, because our neighbors had goats and chickens and things, but I don't remember it. I just remember really appreciating seeing the color. They're orange, really. They're not yellow. They're orange. And the eggs are. And even some of the chicken had an orange tint to them, and just really, really fresh. And that meal was probably one of the best I've ever had, and I'll never forget it. And there was that satisfaction. We made our pasta from scratch. We did all of it, the entire meal. Then to sit down and have that experience, you realize that that's something you're kind of doing nearly every day because you're really participating in the process of bringing that food from your farm to your table. And I have a small garden I've started doing the last few years. And what I tend to grow most is kale and salad, lettuce. And I really eat more salad because I go out to the bin, to the garden and get it fresh and make it right then. And that's the thing that I have to rotate the most often because I go through it more quickly. So one thing too, when I started gardening, I started planting all the things my parents planted. And I figured out that I didn't really like the same things necessarily that they liked. We grew a lot of zucchini because my mom made zucchini bread. I like zucchini bread, but I don't make it. I ate hers when she makes it. So I think it's important too to think about, what do you like? What will you go out there and pick and really eat? Because there's plenty of choices, Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely. And that's a real good piece of advice, because you can grow a food, but if you're not really going to eat it, then maybe that's going to go to waste. But it is fun to, as you're gardening, stick with your basics that produce well and that your family eats, but maybe try a couple of new things that are kind of fun or kind of fresh. You might discover a new favorite that way too.
Let's take one more break. When we come back, I want to talk in more detail about our area here, because you were kind enough to do some research about Wenatchee, knowing you were coming on the show, even though you're in Northern California. So let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk more about that and learn even more from you from Alpine View Farms. We'll be back in just a moment. We are finishing up talking with you, Kim, owner of Alpine View Farms in Northern California. And we wanted to spend a little time now just kind of giving people an idea of what they can do right here from home. We both mentioned that you can live in a small New York City apartment and still raise herbs and do different things in the window, or have different ways of getting to your local farmer's market to get it as fresh as possible, but also support local farming. Let's talk then about the simple little tweaks that people can make. You mentioned using real butter in moderation. A lot of people think that some of the oils that we eat are healthy, and some of them are more toxic than the many things that we put in our body, and they stay in our body for years to come, some of the oils that people use on a daily basis. So let's talk about that, just the little tweaks that we can make, even if that means getting them from somewhere else, but bringing them into our home.
Yeah, I think it really just starts with the food that we're choosing. And not everyone may be able to grow big gardens or raise chickens, but you could grow a little bit of your own food, even if it's just in a few pots on your patio. And that's fun to do, very satisfying. But then looking at your local farmers market. So in Wenatchee, you have a farmers market. It looks like a wonderful farmers market that starts up in May and goes all the way through December every Saturday morning. You can go there and shop, support farmers. Farmers work so hard. It's not a job. It's their whole life. It's their passion. And I mean, I can't think of anyone better to support than farmers other than our veterans. They're definitely up there too. But and you can get to know your local farmer too. A lot of small farmers, they don't have the organic certification. It costs a lot of time and a lot of money to get that. So, you can just talk to that farmer, ask them what they're doing on their farm, how they're raising their animals, how they're growing their food. Are they not using pesticides, staying away from herbicides, that kind of thing? Another great source is Azure Standard. They're out of Oregon, and this is like a big co-op. And so Wenatchee has a drop in East Wenatchee. For Azure Standard, you go online, you do your order. It's once a month. You go and pick it up. And I know I'm kind of a nerd in this way, but it's fun. You're around like-minded people, and it's just a great community. That's another thing with the homesteading lifestyle. You really develop a sense of community. And then I think just, making as much of our food as we can from those good quality, whole ingredients is just going to transform our health. It's going to save us money. Buying from Azure Standard, for example, you can buy a 4-ounce bag of dried herbs. That's going to be cheaper than buying the little spice bottle at the grocery store. So stocking up on those staples and having that pantry stocked with good, wholesome food, doing some meal prep at the beginning of the week, washing those apples, cutting up those carrots. Another great idea is when you are making homemade food is double the recipe and put half of it in the freezer. And then you have your own so-called convenience foods ready to go anytime.
One of the things that when you just were talking about the different foods and having those choices, I find that obviously if we have things ready, we're more likely to go grab that, but also variety, because I hadn't eaten apples in a couple of years. I kind of leaned toward green apples and I wasn't really liking those anymore, but I didn't like certain red apples. And I had a friend here last year from Texas, and she went to the grocery store with me and she bought some apples and she ended up cutting them up. And I had a slice and I've been eating nearly an apple a day ever since because I'd forgotten how much I like apples. And I actually like to bite into the apple. I don't know, it's probably a childhood thing as opposed to slicing it up, but obviously it's more convenient sometimes to slice them and take them with you. But, just knowing that there's how many apples to choose from. When we live in the apple state, so we can choose from that variety and not think, well, I don't like apples. Well, how many apples have you tried? Or I don't like certain things. And how many variations of that have you tried? I just received a cookbook for Valentine's Day called Cherry Blossom. And I'll send you the information about it, but it's so good. And what I immediately did is I turned to the vegetable section because I'm not good at getting all my vegetables in. But if I have them prepared in a lovely way, even the presentation is appealing, I am far more likely to eat them than just trying to get some carrot sticks or celery sticks out of the fridge that I've chopped ahead of time. So really about that food prep and having fun doing it, being in the kitchen, turning on the music, enjoying that time that you're in the kitchen. And I know a lot of people are busy and I went through that, a baseball mom and all of that. There wasn't a lot of time for it. But if we make time for it when we can, I think it makes us enjoy our food more and really enjoy the preparation of it and the time it takes, whether we're growing it and then cooking it or going out, like you say, and getting it at the farmer's market. And thank you, by the way. Once you knew you were coming on the show, you went and did the research of where we can get some of these resources right here in Wenatchee. So is there anything else you could tell us about Wenatchee that we don't already know in terms of what
Well, I
we
have
do to resource that?
there is one other national website called localhens.com, and you can put in your town and search for local farmers. There was one farmer that came up, that's an egg farmer. So that's another resource for people. but it looks like it's a beautiful area, and I definitely hope to visit one day.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful place to live. We try to keep it a secret. I think it was mentioned as one of the top 10 places to retire, and as lovely as that is, we don't want people to know about it. Most people can't even pronounce it, and you did. You pronounced it correctly, so that's amazing too. Then let's also just we have a few more minutes, so let's talk then. When we think about planting and gardening, like you said, not everyone's going to be able to raise their own chickens, but I received a lovely gift once in a gift exchange that had these really cute jars with different herbs on them, their names. I didn't know that you don't plant herbs in a big container because they will take over that container. So I have peppermint for the rest of my life. And it chokes out everything else in that barrel. So, taking those small containers to grow herbs, like you said, putting, a pot or two to grow tomatoes, or you can grow potatoes. There's all kinds of creative ways to grow potatoes that I've seen over the years. What are some other foods that are really simple to grow yourself and then harvest really easily and then grow more?
Yeah, so I've seen herbs do really well in a variety of environments. So containers or raised beds are in the ground. As you mentioned, potatoes, you can just grow potatoes in a 5-gallon pot and you layer them. It's really fascinating how they grow. A lot of the fruits and vegetables that we grow, mainly the vegetables, are direct sow, which means when it's warm enough, you just sow the seed in the ground. And I looked up, Wenatchee has a grow zone of 7A and 7B. So you kind of want to focus on that to know when your last frost date ends and it's safe to grow. Otherwise, things are going to die on you when that frost comes. And so cucumbers are really easy to grow. You can grow cherry tomatoes in a pot really well. Squash is super easy to grow. And then
Strawberries too. I grow strawberries just in a pot, and I've done really well that way.
yes, and what's nice about strawberries is they're a perennial, so they'll come back year after year. You don't have to regrow them. So it kind of just depends on what people like. But like I said before, have some fun with it and make it your little science experiment. And then, the other benefit of gardening and is that you're getting out into the natural world. And we need that so much more in today's society. And you're getting sunshine, and that sunshine in the morning is going to help you sleep later on. And with chickens, I like to say they're the best little therapists, and they're a lot cheaper. So there's just so many benefits to getting closer to our food and really knowing where our food comes from. And when we do that, we're going to transform our health and our family's health. And a really nice benefit is we're also going to really improve the environment, the animals that we're getting our food from, our pollinators. There are just so many benefits to eating healthier and getting back to nature.
I appreciate your time today. Thanks for being on the show, and thanks for doing your research before coming on. I think that our locals learned some things today about what we can do right here at home. So thank you, Kim. Have a
Thank
great
you
rest of your
so
day.
much for having me. Bye bye.